I used to think that procrastination was just a matter of me being lazy, not having good enough time management skills, or just not being disciplined enough. And while those things are true sometimes, I think there's a lot more to procrastination than we tend to let on. In fact, there are often deeper psychological reasons behind why we procrastinate. Even if you think that you're the kind of person who just works better under pressure and you thrive in that adrenaline-filled environment of getting things done at the very last minute, that might not be the best way to operate because it can actually cause a lot of stress and anxiety. So in today's video, I want us to look at some of the reasons behind why we procrastinate and how we can address each of those. I don't think that we can ever really stop procrastinating, but I do think that there are ways that we can manage it. According to our trusty friend, the Merriam-Webster dictionary, to procrastinate means to put off intentionally the doing of something that should be done. I think the key word there is intentionally, because it suggests that this is something that we actively take part in. We actively put things off for some reason or the other.
Why you keep on saying tomorrow?
From my experience, one of the main causes of procrastination is not having clarity about the task that you need to complete, not understanding what it is that you need to do, or not being clear about what the end result is supposed to be. Let's say that you have some homework to do, but you didn't grasp an important concept in class, so that's preventing you from completing your homework. Maybe you're assigned a project at work that you don't have enough context for, or if you're an artist or musician and you're working on a piece, maybe you don't know what exactly it is that you're trying to evoke with that piece. So all of those things are barriers to completion. So the key here is to make sure you understand what's expected of you. Ask questions if you need to, no matter how silly you think they may be. Ask for help. Don't allow your ego to get in the way, because I'm sure that you'd rather not sit and struggle on something when there are people who are there to help you. This leads to the second reason, which is that we often have negative emotions related to or associated with the task that we're procrastinating on. In an episode of the American Psychology Association's Speaking of Psychology podcast, Dr. Fuchsia Sirois says this about those negative emotions. Procrastination becomes a way to cope with the negative mood and those negative emotions, especially if you're someone who hasn't had a lot of experience managing your negative emotions effectively. Because what procrastination does is it gives you immediate relief. That's why we say it's sort of a short-term mood repair. It gives you that quick fix. So you might be feeling some discomfort because of that lack of clarity that we discussed before. You might be feeling some fear and anxiety because you're afraid that your work is not going to meet the standards or the expectations that have been put upon you. So naturally, if those are some of the negative emotions and feelings that are causing us to constantly delay a task, we have to be honest with ourselves about those and try to find better and healthier coping mechanisms, because I think at the end of the day, procrastination is a coping method and a coping mechanism that we employ when we don't have a way of dealing with a task, when we're not equipped to deal with it, or when, as I said, we have these negative emotions attached to it. Another common reason for procrastination is feeling overwhelmed by the sheer scale of a goal or a task. Take starting a YouTube channel, for example. You might decide that you need to design your channel graphics. You might want to set a plan for when your videos are going to be published. You want to decide what kind of content you're going to be producing on your channel. You also want to think about how you're going to market and promote your videos. You have to think about how you're going to edit, what software you're going to use. So if you're looking at this task, if you're looking at this project of creating a YouTube channel as just this huge insurmountable pile of tasks that you need to complete, it can be very daunting and overwhelming and seem like too much to handle all at once. So I think the key here is to break bigger projects down into smaller tasks. Create a blueprint for yourself, set milestones and objectives for yourself so that you can constantly check in on your progress. And I think that's going to make it a lot more manageable for you. The final reason that I'm going to be talking about is that you simply have no interest whatsoever in whatever the task is. This only applies to people who have some sort of agency over whether or not they do something. So maybe as a student or an employee, this doesn't apply to you, because there are certain things that you are obligated to do in order to advance and progress in your career or your education. Even outside of those obligations, I think sometimes we agree to do things for people, whether they're our friends or acquaintances, because we want to be kind, we want to be seen as the kind of person who helps other people, or we are just afraid of saying no. But you might find that your skills, your interests and goals are not aligned with whatever it is that you've agreed to do. I think the best way to manage this is by re-evaluating your commitments. Be very clear with yourself about what it is that you're willing to spend your time doing, and be a bit selfish with your time, because that's not something that can be given back to you. Sometimes that means setting certain boundaries and being okay with saying no, even turning down certain opportunities because you know that your skills and your talents would be better used for other ventures. There are some other very specific techniques and philosophies that I think can be helpful in managing procrastination. The first of which is the 2-minute rule. Sometimes there are small, minuscule tasks that are not necessarily difficult, or that we don't have any sort of negative emotion attached to. Maybe you need to pay a bill or order an item online for your home, or answer a text message or an email. Those things aren't necessarily difficult, or we might not have any negative emotion towards them, but we find ourselves putting them off anyway. And after a while, those can build up. I think the 2-minute rule is applicable for these smaller tasks. It is a technique that was established by David Allen, and it's detailed in his book, Getting Things Done. If a task can be completed in 2 minutes or less, then you take action on it immediately. You don't allow yourself to postpone it. The driving force behind the 2-minute rule, I think, is that immediate action. And by starting off with those small tasks, you allow yourself to build the confidence that you need to approach the larger ones. However, the 2-minute rule can quickly go wrong if you're just using it to jump from small task to small task in order to avoid the larger projects that you need to do. Use it with discretion. Try not to use it for anything that requires deep work. I think it's great for those periods in the day where you find yourself with a bit of spare time, whether that's between classes or meetings or on your daily commute. The second is to eat the frog. Mark Twain once said, "Eat a live frog first thing in the morning, and nothing worse will happen to you for the rest of the day." I know this is getting weird, but hear me out. That quote inspired Brian Tracy's time management method, Eat the Frog. It has nothing to do with the French cuisine. It simply encourages you to identify the most challenging and daunting task that is on your priority list and tackle that, or try to tackle it, in the morning or at the beginning of your day. What I like about this Eat the Frog technique is that it puts you in the mindset of getting work done first thing in the morning. As a result of that, it helps you to build momentum that you can sustain throughout the rest of the day. Secondly, for a lot of people, myself included, your willpower and energy is usually highest at the beginning of the day, so this method takes advantage of that. Thirdly, this Eat the Frog technique encourages you to prioritize tasks that are important to you. So it allows you to do something that is important to you before getting sucked into the vortex of things that other people require from you. A lot of the times it's starting that's the hard part. I don't know if you've experienced this, you probably have, but there have been times where I have put something off constantly, and then when I finally built up the motivation and the willpower to do it, I realized that it wasn't as difficult as I was expecting it to be. So I think this Eat the Frog method is great because it doesn't allow you to overthink into oblivion. It just encourages you to get started. Finally, I want to discuss visualization and self-compassion. I think that one of the best ways to build up the confidence to do something that seems daunting or seems unachievable is to think about all the times in the past where you've been faced with a challenge and how you overcame that challenge. Think about how you'll reward yourself once you've completed this task. Think about how you'll feel. Think about the fact that you're going to be even more prepared for whatever comes next. And while you're doing all of that, show yourself some compassion. I know that there can be a lot of shame and guilt around procrastination because it can be very easy to think of yourself as a failure and talk to yourself negatively if you're not able to start and complete a task. But as we've seen throughout this video, this is something that we all deal with, and there are ways to manage it. I'd like to leave you today with a quote from one of my favorite books. It's called Time and the Art of Living, and it's by the American philosopher Robert Grudin. And this is his take on procrastination. Every time we postpone some necessary event, whether we put off doing the dinner dishes till the morning or defer an operation or some difficult labor or study, we do so with the implication that present time is more important than future time. For if we wished the future to be as free and comfortable as we wish the present to be, we would perform necessary actions as soon as they prove themselves necessary. There is nothing wrong with this, as long as we know what we are doing and as long as the present day indeed holds some opportunity more important than the task we delay. That's all for me for today. If you enjoyed the video, remember to leave a like, subscribe, comment, and let me know what are some of the techniques that you use to manage procrastination, and if you're going to try any of the methods that we talked about in today's video. Let's have a conversation down in the comments. Take good care, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.